They searched the desert. They searched the roads. They knocked on doors, chased license plates, ran DNA through national databases, and flooded a quiet Tucson neighborhood with satellite trucks and search dogs. For weeks, law enforcement combed every surface-level inch of the Catalina foothills looking for an 84-year-old woman who had simply vanished. But it was what lay beneath the surface, a labyrinth of underground drainage tunnels stretching across the neighborhood like a hidden city, that would force investigators to reconsider everything they thought they knew about this case. When the FBI finally descended into those passages, what they found raised questions that no official statement has fully answered. Questions that should not exist. Questions that will not go away. Nancy Guthrie was not famous, and she never wanted to be. She was born Nancy Long on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky, and she spent most of her adult life far from cameras and headlines. She moved to the Tucson area in the early 1970s with her family and stayed for more than 5 decades, long enough to watch the desert bloom, long enough to watch the city grow around her, long enough to feel the Catalina foothills as genuinely home. She married Charles Guthrie, raised 3 children, and built a life defined by consistency rather than spectacle. The grief that entered her life in 1988 would have broken many people. Her husband Charles died unexpectedly at the age of 49 while on a mining exploration trip in Mexico. She was left to raise her family through sudden loss, and she did it without collapse. She stepped more fully into a professional career, working in communications at the University of Arizona. Colleagues remembered her as someone who did not look for praise, but earned quiet respect. She advocated for the program she believed in, held her ground when funding was threatened, and kept moving forward without drawing attention to herself. At home, she extended that same strength outward. She cared for her own mother in her final years. She welcomed her brother, who had Down syndrome, to live in a guest house on her property. She showed up for friends during hard times. She listened. She stayed present. She was the kind of person who anchored others without announcing it. In her later years, Nancy's body had slowed while her mind stayed sharp. She wore hearing aids to fill in what time had carved out. A cane helped her navigate the gravel driveways of the foothills. A pacemaker regulated her heart, and its companion app on her phone tracked her cardiac data in real time. Daily medication was essential. None of these realities diminished her. She still played mahjong strategically and laughed during games. She still wrote in a journal on her patio with the desert air moving around her. She still read constantly and followed the news with the focused attention of someone who genuinely cared about the world. Her youngest daughter, Savannah Guthrie, became one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television as co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. But Nancy never leaned into that spotlight. She valued privacy above nearly everything else. Her home in the Catalina foothills was low-slung, warm, and set back among cactus and desert brush. It was a place of books, long-standing friendships, and quiet dinners. People who knew her well say she would have been deeply uncomfortable with what came next. January 31st, 2026 was an ordinary Saturday. Nancy had spent the evening with her daughter Annie and Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni. They had dinner together at the couple's home, spent several comfortable hours in each other's company, and said their goodbyes with no sign of tension or concern. At approximately 9:50 p.m., Cioni drove Nancy back to her Catalina foothills residence. He watched her pull into the garage. The door closed behind her. He made sure she was safely inside before driving away. That was the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie. What happened in the hours that followed has been reconstructed largely through digital breadcrumbs rather than human witnesses. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, Nancy's front doorbell camera went dark, not from a power outage, but because someone physically tampered with it. 25 minutes later, a motion sensor elsewhere on the property activated, but whatever triggered it left no usable footage behind. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker's companion app on her cell phone lost its signal. Her phone was found inside the house. She had not taken it. Her hearing aid sat on a surface untouched. Her daily heart medication had not been opened. Her wallet was in her car, which sat parked exactly where she had left it. By late morning on February 1st, family members knew something was deeply wrong. Nancy had failed to appear for a planned viewing of a church service livestream, something she had confirmed just days before and had done many times. She was the kind of person who did not miss plans. When calls and messages went unanswered, family members went to her home around 11 a.m. They found no sign of her. Around noon, they called 911. When deputies arrived, The evidence they encountered was immediate and unambiguous. Blood was found near the front porch. DNA testing later confirmed it was Nancy's. The doorbell camera mount was empty. The device had been removed. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos said publicly that the scene did not sit well, that there were clear signs of force, and that investigators believed from the start that Nancy had been taken against her will. The house that had been a place of books and quiet dinners was now a crime scene. 10 days into the investigation, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department released something that changed the public scope of the case entirely: surveillance footage recovered from Nancy's doorbell camera system. The video had been extracted from residual data located in the device's back-end systems, a detail that revealed both the sophistication of the recovery effort and the sophistication of whoever had tried to destroy it. The footage showed a masked individual approaching Nancy's front door in the early morning hours of February 1st. The person wore gloves, khaki pants, sneakers, and carried what was later identified as an Ozark Trail Hiker pack, a backpack widely sold at Walmart stores across the country. The suspect's face was completely covered. At one point, the individual reached up and tried to block the camera with a gloved hand, then attempted to cover it using leaves from nearby vegetation. The estimated height was between 5 feet 9 inches and 5 feet 10 inches, with an average build. A forensic analyst later suggested the suspect might have a mustache, visible through the eye holes of the mask. 2 images later obtained by News Nation and confirmed by sources showed that this same individual had been outside Nancy's home on a separate occasion before the night of her disappearance. The suspect had visited before. He had studied the property. He knew where the camera was and how to approach it. The attack was not random. The attack was planned. FBI Director Kash Patel personally posted the surveillance images and videos to his social media account, an unusually high-profile move that underscored the national attention the case had drawn. Tips flooded in by the thousands. The Pima County Sheriff's Department reported receiving more than 40,000 calls, emails, and online submissions from across Arizona and beyond. Investigators sifted through every one of them, running down vehicle descriptions, backpack sightings, and alleged facial recognitions with no confirmed result. The Catalina foothills was designed to feel removed from the pressures of city life. Homes sit on large lots with long driveways. Natural desert brush, saguaro cactus, palo verde, brittlebush creates organic barriers between properties. Strict local light ordinances preserve the night sky by limiting street lamps. It is a neighborhood that values space, quiet, and the particular privacy that comes with distance. But underneath those quiet streets, an entirely different geography existed. One that investigators would come to view as potentially critical to understanding not just how Nancy Guthrie was taken, but how her abductor may have moved unseen. The Tucson metropolitan area, like many Sunbelt cities, contains an extensive network of underground storm drainage infrastructure. These are not decorative waterways. They are functional flood control systems built to channel the sudden, violent monsoon rains that can dump inches of water on the desert in under an hour. The tunnels beneath the Catalina foothills extend through the neighborhood, connecting drainage points across hundreds of properties in proximity to Nancy's home, approximately 8 miles northeast of downtown Tucson. During the search operation, investigators from a Pima County Sheriff's Office and FBI did enter and examine underground tunnel sections near the Guthrie residence. A backpack was found in one of the search areas near the tunnels and taken into evidence. The significance of that backpack was not publicly confirmed, but its proximity to both the tunnels and Nancy's home placed it squarely within the investigative frame. The tunnels represented something that surface-level searches could never account for: a route that bypassed every doorbell camera, every neighbor's Ring device, every motion-activated floodlight. Former law enforcement officials, speaking to media outlets in the weeks following Nancy's disappearance, noted that the tunnel network changed the fundamental assumptions of the investigation. If someone who knew the terrain could enter the storm drain system at one point and exit at another, they could potentially move through the neighborhood without ever appearing on a single camera. It would explain the conspicuous absence of video showing how the suspect arrived or departed. It would explain why no vehicle connected to the abduction had been identified despite intensive canvassing. It would suggest a level of local knowledge and advanced planning far beyond a crime of opportunity. Outside the home, roughly 2 miles from where Nancy had last been seen, investigators found a black glove lying in the desert near the side of a road. Its color and material were consistent with what the masked suspect appeared to be wearing in the doorbell footage. The glove was logged, sent for forensic testing, and quickly became the most discussed piece of physical evidence in the case. The results were simultaneously promising and frustrating. DNA extracted from a glove indicated the presence of an unknown male profile. The genetic material did not belong to Nancy Guthrie and did not match anyone in her immediate family or social circle. Investigators ran the profile through CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system, which holds millions of profiles from convicted offenders and from evidence gathered in previous investigations. The glove produced no match. Then investigators turned to the evidence recovered from inside the home itself. What they found there was even more complex. The DNA extracted from biological material at Nancy's residence was described as mixed, meaning it contained genetic material from more than one individual. Mixed DNA profiles are significantly harder to process through national databases. The intermingling of profiles can create ambiguity that makes individual identification unreliable. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos acknowledged the challenge publicly in an interview with NBC News, confirming that the mixed profile was complicating the timeline for identification. Investigators moved to a second strategy, investigative genetic genealogy. This method, which helped crack the Golden State Killer case and has since been applied in dozens of cold and active investigations, involves comparing crime scene DNA against profiles voluntarily submitted to consumer ancestry databases, such as GEDmatch. Even if a suspect has never submitted their own DNA, a relative might have done so. Analysts can then build family trees from distant matches, narrowing potential suspects to individuals within a manageable geographic and demographic range. The process can take weeks, but it has broken cases that no other tool could touch. Alongside the DNA work, investigators were pursuing a parallel forensic avenue, retail tracking. Officials confirmed they were working with Walmart to identify the specific Ozark Trail backpack visible in the surveillance footage. Different production runs of the same product can carry unique manufacturer codes, batch markings, or regional distribution patterns. If the backpack could be traced to a specific store, purchase window, or geographic region, it could provide a lead independent of the DNA. Investigators were also consulting local gun stores, having noted from forensic enhancement of the doorbell footage that the suspect appeared to be armed. As the investigation entered its second month, a detail emerged that investigators had been quietly examining since the earliest days of the case. A damaged utility box located around the corner from Nancy's home was confirmed by the Pima County Sheriff's Department to be under active investigation. The equipment appeared to have been interfered with. And the timing of that interference, if deliberate, aligned almost exactly with the night Nancy disappeared. Neighbors told News Nation that their home's security camera footage from the night of February 1st was either missing or marked as unavailable. When authorities canvassed the neighborhood, asking residents about anything unusual they had noticed, several reported experiencing internet disruptions during the early morning hours of that date. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed it was working to determine whether those connectivity problems were coincidental or whether someone had deliberately caused them. If the internet outage was intentional, it represented a level of operational planning that extended well beyond a single home invasion. Disabling neighborhood surveillance by targeting shared infrastructure requires advanced knowledge of how local systems are wired, where junction boxes are located, and what effect cutting or damaging a specific piece of equipment would have on the surrounding network. It is not the kind of knowledge that someone acquires casually. It is the kind of knowledge acquired through research, reconnaissance, or professional familiarity with utility systems. Former FBI Special Agent Jason Pack, speaking to Fox News Digital, described the investigation as one where authorities almost certainly had data pointing towards specific individuals but were still working to refine it. He noted that the FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey Team, one of the Bureau's most specialized units for tracing suspects through cell tower data, was likely working the case. "They have data, mountains of it," Pack said. "Names have surfaced and been evaluated. Some have been cleared. Others may still be in play in ways we aren't seeing publicly." By the time the investigation entered its fifth and sixth weeks, law enforcement sources had outlined at least 6 distinct theories they were pursuing simultaneously. The first was a burglary that escalated into something far worse, a scenario in which the original intent may not have been abduction at all. The second centered on ransom kidnapping driven by Nancy's connection to her daughter Savannah, whose net worth has been publicly estimated at approximately $40 million. The third considered the possibility of professional involvement, an operation carried out by individuals with criminal expertise rather than opportunistic impulse. A fourth theory explored potential cartel connections, given the proximity of the search area to Rio Rico, a community just 15 miles north of the Mexican border, where investigators had executed a federal search warrant and detained a person of interest who was later released without charges. Through all of this, Sheriff Nanos made a statement that cut through the theoretical noise and focused public concern with striking directness. He told NBC News that investigators believe they knew why the suspect had targeted Nancy Guthrie's home specifically. He could not share the details publicly, and he was careful not to claim certainty. But he said the targeting was real, and he issued a warning that extended beyond the Guthrie family. "Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe," he said. "No, keep your wits about you." He added that the suspect could, in his assessment, absolutely strike again. That statement changed the emotional register of the case for many people following it. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie had already unsettled a neighborhood built on the assumption of safety. The sheriff's words confirmed something many feared but few had said plainly. Whoever did this was still out there, still unknown, and still capable. The reward pool reflected the urgency. The FBI had increased its own reward to $100,000 for information leading to Nancy's location or to the arrest and conviction of those responsible. An anonymous donor contributed an additional $100,000 to the 88 crime tip line, bringing that fund's total to over $102,000. On February 24th, the Guthrie family offered $1 million of their own, bringing the combined reward to more than $1.2 million, a figure that signaled not just desperation but determination. Throughout the weeks that followed her mother's disappearance, Savannah Guthrie made one of the most consequential decisions of her professional life. She stepped away from her NBC duties entirely. She had been scheduled to co-host the opening ceremonies of the 2026 Winter Olympics, one of the highest-profile assignments in morning television. She set it aside. She stayed in Tucson. She made her mother the only story she was willing to tell. Her first public video, released on February 4th, showed her alongside her siblings, Annie and Cameron. She read from prepared notes. Her voice was controlled but strained. She asked directly for proof of life, acknowledging that in the modern era, audio and video can be manipulated, and that the family needed something they could verify. The message was careful, specific, and legally precise, the kind of communication shaped by both emotional urgency and professional discipline. On February 7th, she released another video in which she stated, plainly and without hesitation, "We will pay." The videos that followed showed a woman adapting her strategy in real time. When ransom discussions appeared to stall and deadlines passed without verified contact, the tone shifted. A later video featured Savannah standing alone, no siblings beside her, no written script visible. She spoke slowly. She repeated one phrase more than once: "It's never too late to do the right thing." There was no mention of money, no reference to deadlines, no accusation.